Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's workshop, The Truth About Liver Cancer, Mind, Body, and Support. The Truth About Liver Cancer is produced by Blue Faery, the Adrian Wilson Liver Cancer Association. It's a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting patients, caregivers, and families impacted by hepatocellular carcinoma, also known as HCC. Blue Fairy's mission is to prevent, treat, and cure HCC through education, advocacy, and research. I'm your host, Aura Sanchez, and I'm the program manager at Blue Fairy. I'm passionate about health education and patient advocacy and helping people access meaningful resources and support. Working with this incredible organization has given me the opportunity to connect with patients, caregivers, healthcare professionals, and advocates from across the country. And I've seen firsthand what education, compassion, and community can do, and it can make a meaningful difference throughout the cancer journey. I'm especially excited today because we get to do a very special topic. It focuses on something that's just as important as medical treatment, yet often doesn't receive the same attention. Today's discussion is about caring for the whole person. We'll explore how emotional well-being, proper nutrition, and supportive care, along with a strong support system, can help patients and caregivers navigate the challenges that come with a liver cancer diagnosis, and actually any sort of cancer as well. Whether you're a patient, caregiver, family member, healthcare professional, or advocate, we hope that today's conversation leaves you feeling informed, encouraged, and reminded that you don't have to face this journey alone. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our incredible panelists that are joining us here on a Saturday. We're honored to have you today. Thank you to Anna, who will share her expertise on emotional health and coping, Taylor, our oncology dietitian, who will discuss the important role of how the important role nutrition plays, and Patrick, who will share his personal journey through liver disease, and Ambreen, whose unique perspective as both a cancer survivor and caregiver brings invaluable insight. We're so grateful that each of you are taking the time out today to be here with us. Now, before we jump into today's discussion, I'd like to go over Zoom webinars, what it is, how I can help you guys have the best experience with us here today and during today's session. So I'm hoping you can all see my screen. Okay, I would like to see some thumbs up if you can see my screen. So let's go over what Zoom webinars is. If you don't immediately see your toolbar, you could just go ahead and glide your mouse over and you'll be able to see the toolbar. It should appear right away. And thumbs up if you're able to see your toolbar should be at the bottom of your screen. That's where you'll find all the features that we'll be using today. So let's start with the chat. So Zoom has chat. It works a little differently than it does at a Zoom meeting. Your messages will come to the Blue Fairy team and our panelists, but not necessarily to all of the attendees. So if you experience any technical difficulties during today's webinar, such as trouble hearing us, you can't stay connected, please let us know in the chat. I will try my best to monitor it, but today we also have a very special guest, our communications manager, Chastity Moody, and our president and founder, Andrea Wilson Woods, who will be helping us out in the chat. So if you have any difficulties, please use the chat. Now, let's test it out. So I'd like to know where everybody is joining us from. So we always love seeing where everybody's tuning in from. And because today's discussion is all about caring for your mind, your body, maybe let us know, what do you do for self-care? Maybe it's taking a walk, maybe it's reading a book, maybe it's having a cup of coffee. Maybe it's having some ice cream. Let us know what you do for self-care. I'd love to see it in the chat. I see we got a few answers in the chat. Awesome. Awesome. So now that you guys know where chat is, that's what you can use to let us know if you need any help. Now let's move on to reactions. So the reactions feature is usually found at your toolbar. And again, if you don't see it, go ahead and glide your mouse over. This is used to send us any reactions of how you're feeling about the content that we're sharing today. So you can send us a thumbs up, a heart, several different emojis and applause. We love making these sessions interactive, and this is a really fun way to engage throughout the webinar. You can send them at any time. Perfect. I'm seeing a lot of reactions. Okay, finally, this is one of our most important features, the Q&A feature. Okay, so you'll notice that this is separate from the chat. So if you have any questions for our panelists today, this is the feature that you'll be using. So please submit any questions for our panelists in the Q&A feature right here. We will answer them at the very end. To use the Q&A feature, you simply just click the Q&A, enter your question, and press send. We encourage you to submit questions throughout the webinar as they come to mind. So whether your questions about nutrition, emotional support, wellness, caregiving, survivorship, treatment, we'd love to see your questions and we'll answer as many as we can at the end once our panelists have all gone. You'll also be able to upvote questions submitted by other attendees, and this helps us prioritize the topics that you guys want answered. And also one final reminder. You see the raise hand feature right here. Right here, please don't use that. We will answer if you have a question, please go ahead, use the Q&A. If you cannot hear us or see us, please go ahead and use the chat feature. And if you would like to show captions for yourself, this is the button that you can click to use captions. Other than that, I'm so happy that you're here. And just a quick reminder that this session is going to be recorded. We should have it up on YouTube on Monday by Monday, and you should all receive an email as well so that you can view it. So I'm hoping none of you can see my screen anymore. Awesome. So now that everyone's a Zoom expert, I hope, let's get started. I would love to introduce you to Anna Marshall. Anna developed an interest in mental health while serving in the Marine Corps. After her service, she earned a bachelor's degree in psychology and a master's in social work from the University of Texas at Austin. While pursuing clinical leisure, she worked in a community psychiatric setting with individuals experiencing severe mental illness and often comorbid substance use disorders. She has experience in assessing and determining a wide range of mental health diagnoses, as well as providing psychotherapy, skills in training and case management and advocacy. She has been a part of liver transplant team at Houston Methodist Hospital for 3 years, supporting patients through stages of transplant process. And aside from her passion in mental health, her interests include traveling, experiencing various cultures, and spending time with her dog, Winston. Thank you so much for being here, Anna.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, Anna, before we dive into today's discussion, I'd love for everyone to get to know you a little better. What inspired you to become a social worker, and what ultimately led you to working with liver transplant patients?
My journey to social worker or social work rather was incredibly personal. While I was serving in the Marines, my older brother, my best friend, my first childhood hero actually was diagnosed with a severe mental illness and died by suicide within a year of that diagnosis. Um, that event really changed the direction of my entire life. So I wanted to get into social worker or social work. I wanted to work with people like my brother and families like mine. And then, so working in that community psychiatric setting, a colleague of mine actually brought me into the transplant setting. Um, and there I learned, I've just learned so much about my patients and the families that I've worked with, the incredible emotional toll that it takes on them, both patients, caregivers, and then the staff as well. It's incredibly meaningful work.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I bet. Well, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I mean, you work with patients every day. What are some of the emotions you most commonly see after someone is diagnosed with liver cancer?
Probably the most common one is anxiety. And I think a lot of times what underlies that anxiety is fear. Fear because there's a lot of unknown, a lot of future questions that we just can't answer. Um, what are the scans going to look like? Is it going to come back in the future? How do I plan for the future, not knowing what's going to happen? A lot
Yeah,
of
of
patients
course.
have to, growing up in the Houston area, I really took for granted that the Texas Medical Center was right down the street and I had access to pretty much any kind of healthcare I could possibly need. But I've learned that a lot of patients, from more rural areas have to travel long ways to seek the life-saving treatment that they need, and it's costly. Insurance doesn't always cover that amount or that those relocation costs. So um, dealing with all of that, I think there's a lot of anxiety and fear that comes with that.
Yeah, of course. And so when all these patients come to you and they're carrying that uncertainty, that anxiety, and that fear, how do you help them begin coping uh, with all these things that must feel like it's out of their control?
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. It doesn't happen overnight. I think the first thing that I start working with patients on is focusing their control on the things that they are, sorry, their attention on the things that they can control rather than things that they can't control. There's a lot of things that we can't control. We can't control the results of the scans. We can't control, whether the cancer comes back or not. That's not something that we can do to influence the outcomes, really. But there are a lot of things that we can control: who we spend our time with, how we spend our time, all of those things, making it to our appointments, making sure that we're following the treatment recommendations, all of those things that we are things that we can control. So focusing on that. And then once we kind of get that down, we can start looking at different kind of coping skills. Part of that is an acceptance of all the changes. Sometimes there's a shift in identity. I have patients who were once very active into sports, um, and life looks different afterwards, after that
Yeah.
diagnosis and once the treatment starts. So, um, kind of adjusting to the new normal and the new identity is kind of where we start.
Yeah, of course. And I've heard that, a lot of patients when they get their diagnosis, they grieve the life that they had before cancer. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. When we hear the word grief, a lot of us think it's because someone has died, like a person or maybe a pet has died, but we can grieve a lot of different things. I just talked about the shift in identity. A lot of people
Yep.
grieve that identity that they once had, and they're not really sure where to pick up and what that new identity looks like. So they're grieving what used to be, and they're not um, really able to focus on what is and what they can do now to live a fulfilling life, because they're kind of stuck in that grief. A lot of patients will, they'll come in and they'll describe their experiences and they'll say, I'm just really sad and I'm scared and all of those things, which are true and are valid. But I think even under that is grief also, which is really important to acknowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And so many patients and caregivers also tell us they just don't know where to start a conversation about cancer, especially with the people that they love. What advice can you give to our patients and caregivers tuning in right now?
Where to start? I think starting anywhere is better than starting nowhere. I don't think that people always have to know where to start. A good question to ask themselves is, why is this challenging for me? Why does this feel uncomfortable? And kind of go from there. Sometimes it's because they don't want to burden their families. They don't want their loved ones, their caregivers, their spouses to feel that same sense of anxiety, fear, grief that they feel, so they keep it to themselves. Um, Sometimes it's because they're still processing everything themselves. It
Yeah,
doesn't, it takes time to absorb
yeah, of
that and
course.
answer the question about, why is this so difficult for me? What am I feeling? Naming and identifying those experiences that you're having. And those are going to vary by patient. I think there's a lot of similarities, but people are going to have their own very unique experiences of all of those things. Um,
Of
It's
course.
important to remember, I think, that your loved ones are experiencing this change also. While you're the patient, maybe, and you're receiving that diagnosis, and that's very personal to you, and your own experience of that. your loved ones are experiencing their own version, their own experience of those things too. So, um, if you're not wanting to talk about it and uh, work through it and stuff, your loved one might feel isolated too. And I think that gets really muddy because everybody, has a right to their own experience.
Right.
Um, but whenever we're wanting to keep it to ourselves because we don't want to burden our loved ones, I think sometimes it can actually do the opposite and burden them even a little bit more because it doesn't give them, that connection and source of support.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love how you touched on, the loved ones. They also go through their own thing, and they're also going through a lot at the same time. Um, some of the hardest conversations families face aren't just about treatment. They're also about kind of planning ahead and what lies ahead. Are there any conversations that you encourage families to have early so that they can make things easier?
It's really tough. I kind of talked about earlier, it's hard to plan for the future when you don't know what the future holds. One of those things that most people put to the side and kind of put off because they don't think it's very important at the time are those advanced directives and medical power of attorney kind of conversations. Um, there's a default, at least in the state of Texas. I don't know how it works exactly in other states, but in the state of Texas, your default medical power of attorney would be your spouse. If you don't have a spouse, then it would be your parents, if or your children. There's kind of this hierarchy thing. But sometimes people don't want necessarily their spouse to be their medical power of attorney because that's really hard. The spouses can't always make an objective kind of decision
Right.
that maybe the patient would want for themselves, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I always encourage those conversations early on before things get really challenging, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, it's important to have those hard conversations sometimes. Um, so I wanted to talk a little bit about, support is such a big part of today's conversation. I want to know, why is having a strong support system so important throughout treatment and recovery?
For cancer treatment and transplant treatment, if you make it to that point, caregivers are required in a lot of cases. For transplant specifically, you have to have a support system. You have to have caregivers to be eligible for a transplant because nobody can go it alone. Everybody needs support. Every team captain needs their team. The chef doesn't
That's
do
right.
it themselves. They have their sous chefs. Having a strong support system helps you manage all of these things a little bit more. You don't have to do it all yourself. And the way you use your support systems, if you can use it strategically, I think is really helpful too. For example, if you have someone that you know who really enjoys cooking, have them cook you some meals. Usually, people in your support system say, how can I help you? And it's because they want to help you. There's research out there that shows that we feel better about ourselves whenever we get to help other people. And a lot of times we think of that as like us helping other people. So I tell my patients, don't take that joy away from other people. If they ask how they can help, it's because they want to help you. So let those people help you. Use them. If you have somebody who is really detail oriented and good about paperwork, have them help you fill out some of that paperwork to take um, that strain off of you, that pressure off of you. Just one less task that you have to focus
Yeah.
on. So using that strategically, but also going back to caregivers and their own experiences. Caregivers experience burnout too. They have to take care of themselves and their own experiences along with their loved one, and they want to do it, right? Caregivers want to do it. They're happy to do it, but we only have so much capacity. Um,
Right.
Let me see. Let me look at my notes real quick to make sure I hit on everything because I think this was good.
Yeah, of course. I think you did, but I want to ask you one thing because I know that we're in a little bit of a crunch for time. Whether someone's waiting for scan results or treatment decisions or a transplant call, I feel like uncertainty can create so much anxiety. What advice do you have for patients that, and even also caregivers, their loved ones probably feel that anxiety too. What advice do you have for them navigating through those tough moments?
I think a big part of coping with anything, really, I think this is just general, is managing expectations. Um, we don't know what those results are going to say. I use the word or the term rather cautiously hopeful. Being cautiously hopeful can be helpful. Um, it, there's you're going to have difficult emotions. You're going to have that fear and anxiety. That's understandable. But being able to tolerate that and work through it and make sure that you're going to those appointments to find out so that you know kind of what the next step is. And talking to your family, your support, they're probably experiencing something similar and you don't have to kind of go through that alone. But if you let it kind of sit inside of you, it seems a lot more intense than if you sort of share it with the people who are already feeling those things too.
Yeah, that's true. And now before we wrap up here, what's one message you hope every patient and caregiver watching today takes away about caring for their mental health throughout their journey?
Yeah. Support. Whatever that support looks like. Sometimes it looks like your spouse or, your close family. Sometimes it's support groups, it's professional help, it's your clinic social worker, all kinds of different support. But seeking support early on can be incredibly helpful because it's there from the beginning. So it doesn't let things pile up, right? You're learning as you go and dispersing that sort of distress, whatever that looks like as you go. And then being open to learning, open to learn new ideas, Coping is not, it's a skill, so it's not something that you're born with. You don't learn it
Right.
overnight. It's something that's developed along the way, and you can learn new coping skills. Just because you have great coping skills that have worked in the past doesn't necessarily mean that they're working really great right now. There's lots of different things out there that you can try.
Right. Thank you so much, Anna. That's great advice. So we're going to have Anna come right back at the top of the hour for our Q&A, and we're going to welcome our next panelist. And if you guys liked what Anna had to say, I'd love to see some reactions for Anna. And if you have any questions for her, make sure you're putting them in the Q&A. She will be answering them at the end. I'd love to introduce Ambreen Maan. After experiencing misdiagnoses and delayed diagnoses of stage 4 Hodgkin's lymphoma at age 19, Ambreen gained firsthand insight into the challenges young adults face navigating cancer care. Just 3 years later, she became a caregiver for her father during his battle with an aggressive liver cancer, further shaping her passion for patient advocacy. Today, Ambreen is a licensed social worker and director of programs at the Dear Jack Foundation. She combines her lived experience and clinical expertise to develop patient-centered programs, advocate for adolescents and young adults with cancer, and ensure patients and families feel seen, supported, and empowered throughout their journey. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Ambreen. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, Ambreen, before we dive into the conversation, with your experience as a caregiver, we'd love to get you and your we'd love to get to know you and your family a little better. Could you tell us about yourself, introduce us to your dad, and share how your family's liver cancer diagnosis begun?
Yeah, so I come from a big family. I am the second youngest of six kids, and of course, I had my mom and dad. And really, to talk about our experience with my dad's cancer, I kind of have to backtrack and go back to when I was diagnosed with my own cancer. So I was 19, like you said. It was my sophomore year of college, and my entire family really came together to support me. They were all incredible, but my dad was definitely one of my biggest supporters. He was incredible. He was there every step of the way, and his biggest thing was using humor to help me get through some of the hardest moments of my cancer experience. Humor is just so incredible, and I feel like that dark humor that you really only use when you are a patient or a caregiver is really special. And he kept me laughing and my spirits high throughout all of it. When I went into remission and I slowly started recovering, getting back into the swing of things and regular life, I guess, after cancer, Um, my family was hit by cancer once again, this time with my dad. It was about 3 years after I found out I was in remission, and it happened so suddenly. It was not something any of us ever expected. My dad was extremely healthy. He had the best diet. He would work out, play basketball daily. We never expected that he would be sick. What happened was, he just started getting this random abdominal pain. Prior to that, he had no symptoms at all. He went to the ER to get the pain checked out, and he thought, oh, it's probably just a kidney stone or something. They did some scans, and right away we knew it was cancer. He was diagnosed with stage 4 HCC liver cancer, and it had already spread significantly. Like I said, it was just a complete shock. I thought after my family went through my cancer that it can't possibly strike again. Lightning can't strike twice. The chances of that is so low. So
Yeah.
seeing that and having to go through it again, but this time with my dad, was unexpected. And we knew right off the bat, unfortunately, that his prognosis didn't look good. So that just added a whole other layer to us not only coping with the fact that he had cancer, but the fact that we probably had very limited time with him as well. Again, just like with my cancer, my whole family came together to support. My siblings are kind of spread out across different states, but they all came back to be there as much as they could. And it was my mom, my little sister, and I who were really his primary caregivers. We shared a lot of that responsibility with managing his appointments, his medications, his daily care. And it's not something
Yeah.
you ever think you have to go through, but especially that young. I was 23 when my dad was diagnosed. My little sister
Wow.
was 18. And all of a sudden, we were full-time caretakers,
Caregivers,
our
yeah.
rock for the person that we thought was the strongest, healthiest person of our family. So it
Wow.
was,
I mean, I can only imagine what a shock that was. And remind me again, what is your dad's names for our panelists,
oh,
for our audience to hear?
my dad's name is Chowdhury.
Awesome. So, I mean, as your dad's illness progressed, what was it like becoming one of his caregivers?
Yeah, so I always used to think before my dad was diagnosed, when I went through my own and I went into remission, I thought, okay, this is it. I've gone through the hardest thing someone could possibly go through. I had cancer. What can possibly be worse than that? But after my dad was diagnosed and I became his caregiver, I realized, no, this is the worst thing anyone can ever have to go through, to experience your loved one going through such a terrible experience in the diagnosis and feeling so powerless. It really opened my eyes to what my family, what my dad must have gone through when I was going through my own diagnosis. And that layer as well of me being a survivor, I feel like it just added another layer of complexity to the grief and the pain that I was experiencing. So there's a lot of guilt there. Because, like I said, we
Yeah.
knew from the beginning his prognosis was short. And my dad would always say, if you could get through this, like I can do it too. So
Yeah.
it was hard carrying, the pain and that guilt while also trying to support him and do everything I could to help.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, and you mentioned, I mean, you have a big family, and you mentioned how much you all leaned on each other throughout your cancer and now your dad's cancer. What did you learn about supporting one another while also navigating your own grief?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson I learned is everyone goes through this differently. Everyone copes with grief and loss differently. And like Anna mentioned, that grief has so many different layers to it. It's not just the grief of losing your loved one, it's the grief of
Yeah.
all the things you lose along the way. So I think learning that this looks different for everyone was a hard lesson to learn, but a very important one. So each of my siblings, we all coped with it very differently. I was probably one of the more emotional ones. My brother, for example, was a very practical person. So he would just talk about things very matter of fact. And initially, it made it really hard because it felt like it almost felt to me like
Yeah.
maybe this other person doesn't care as much, but then I realized that's just what grief looks like. Everyone is dealing with that loss and that pain, and it just looks different. And learning that and learning to be able to communicate better with each other of what we need and what that looks like. It was challenging, but I think it really helped to bring us together. And even now, I feel like it made us so much closer as a family.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I think it's good for our attendees and listeners right now to hear and know that, everybody copes differently. Not everybody copes the same. So it's important to know that. And I do see a few reactions to everything you're saying. I got a lot of 100 emojis. So keep the reactions coming, everyone. Um, I wanted to also ask you. Um, Many patients and caregivers are hesitant, which is normal, to seek counseling or emotional support. What would you say to someone who's kind of unsure about taking that first step?
I would say that there really is no right time. There's no right timeline for when to seek support. Just know that it's there and know that it's there whenever you're ready. For some people, it might be immediately that they want to look for support, they want to find that so they can have someone to talk to and unload some
Right?
of this. For other people, it can take months, sometimes even years, until you feel like you're really ready to focus on yourself and get the support that you need and that you deserve. I feel like for caregivers as well, sometimes we feel like we don't need it because we're so focused on the patient and that the patient needs this support. This is what the patient needs, or our loved one needs, that we forget that we also have needs that we need to take care of, and it's
Right.
not selfish prioritizing that. So I think just reminding yourself that you could seek that support anytime. There's no wrong time. And I would also say another piece of advice is don't be afraid to shop around for the right support. For some people, it may be talk therapy. For other people, it may be social support groups. It may be mentorship. But just know that you could always try different things, especially when it comes to a therapist. Finding the right therapist is the most important in getting the support that you need. And it's okay
Right.
if you don't hit it off with the first therapist. You could always try again. And then I,
Right.
I have to add this because I do come from, a different cultural background. And I hear this a lot from people who come from similar backgrounds like me, that they're hesitant, that they don't think the therapist will fully understand them or their background. But just know therapists are trained to meet people where they're at. They're trained to take into account your background, your values, where you're coming from. So yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to
Yeah.
us whenever that might be.
Yeah, I do see in the comments, Andrea said, yeah, definitely shop therapists. So everyone, definitely shop therapists. Don't be afraid to find the right person for you. Um, so one of the things that really stayed with me during our first conversation was you talked about how intentional your dad was, and he sounded like a great man, about creating memories with you guys. You guys have such a big family. Would you share what those moments meant to your family?
Yeah, those moments really meant the world to me. And my dad truly was an incredible human being that he even thought to do that, to take this intentional time where he gave each and every one of us, and again, we're a big family, so that's a lot of effort, especially when you're sick, but he took time to spend one-on-one time with each of us, talk about anything under the sun, make sure that we knew how he felt about us. He really, that was kind of his support mechanism too, I think. He didn't seek
Yeah.
counseling himself, but he loved being around people. He loved being around us. He loved being around his friends, our neighbors. So spending time with them was really important. And I think for everybody who he touched in his life, not even just us, his kids, those moments mean the world to all of them. And we talk about it to this day. Like he would play games with us. I remember the very last day before he went
Mhm.
into hospice care in facility, he made time to go on a walk with each of us. Like he did it separately, so we each had that opportunity. And if he wasn't feeling strong enough, he just sat in his wheelchair. And I always look back at that. Like during the walk, he specifically said, I need a picture with each and every one of us. So we all got this sweet picture with him. And I look back at that picture all the time, and it means the world
That's
to
so
me.
sweet. That's so sweet. What was his favorite game to play? I know you mentioned he liked
There's
to
this,
play games.
yeah, there's this game. It's very similar to Sari. It's called Ludo. It comes from Pakistan, where my family's from. That was his favorite game to play, and he was a champion. He would get so intense and so competitive, but he never lost. And One of the last moments that we really had together where he was fully, coherent in there. Um, he played the game with me and he lost and I won and I was shocked. He never loses. I kind of feel like he let me win probably, so I had that memory. And after I won, he told me, "Oh, that's it. Like you're the new champion of the family. Now you have to carry that weight." And
Oh,
it was a beautiful
yeah.
memory.
Yeah, I in my country we also play something similar to Sorry. It's called Parques. It's from Colombia, and I think a lot of countries have similar games to Sorry. Wow, that's awesome that you got to play that with him. Now, your experience as a cancer patient and a caregiver, you've experienced cancer as a patient and caregiver, and now as a social worker as well. How have those experiences shaped the way that you think about caring for the whole person?
Yeah, I think experiencing cancer from all these different lenses as a patient, as a caregiver, and as a social worker, I think it has made me realize just how much cancer is an ongoing experience. That
Yeah,
experience, that journey, that healing, the impact of it doesn't stop after treatment ends. It doesn't stop after you enter survivorship. It doesn't stop if you lose your loved one. The weight of that is still there, and it impacts everyone around you, not this just the patient. It impacts the caregivers, the family, the friends, the neighbors, even your healthcare team. As a social worker, I definitely carry that weight. I feel that weight for the patients that I support, and I think sometimes we forget that when we think about our healthcare team and our providers.
right.
They carry that weight too. And as that caregiver perspective, I think we often forget to take care of ourselves. We are so
Yeah.
focused on our loved one that we need to help them, we need to support them, get them everything that they need, that we forget to take care of ourselves. I know I definitely skipped a lot of meals. I wasn't sleeping well. I was neglecting my own mental health. All of my needs didn't matter anymore. All that mattered was my dad and what he needed. But that's not the right way to go through this. We still
Right.
make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. And again, that can look different for everyone. It can look like just taking a short walk when you need to, taking a breather, doing some small act to refuel yourself because we carry a lot. And if we take care of ourselves, we can do a better job taking care of our loved ones as well.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Ambreen, for sharing all of that insight with us. And again, if any of our attendees have any questions for both Ambreen or Anna, they're both social workers, so go ahead and pop them in the Q&A. I'm sure that they'd love to answer questions at the very end of our discussion. We're going to bring Ambreen right back at the end for our Q&A. For now, I'd love to introduce our new panelist, Patrick Cray. Patrick earned his Bachelor's of Science degree in Business Administration from Boston College and spent more than 30 years working in sales and sales management. After experiencing a life-changing liver disease diagnosis and receiving a liver transplant, Patrick joins us today to share his personal journey. Through his story, he'll reflect on physical and emotional challenges that he faced and the importance of a strong support system and the lessons he learned throughout recovery. Patrick, thank you so much for joining us today. We can't
Thank
see
you.
you just yet.
Oh,
Uh, Hopefully your camera turns on. Let's see. Awesome. Hi, Patrick. Thank you for joining us so
how we
much
doing?
today. We're excited to have you. Great.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.
Thank you everybody
So
for spending their Saturday afternoon here.
awesome. Thank you so much, Patrick. So, Patrick, every liver disease journey is different, as you may know. Could you share with us yours?
Certainly, my
Mhm.
journey began about 2 years ago. I was diagnosed with fatty liver disease, and I didn't know much about it, didn't think much about it. My primary care physician told me to cut back on alcohol and eat better, um, more proteins, um, and to exercise more. And I've heard that for 10 years.
Yeah.
Fatty liver, fatty face, fatty stomach, no big deal. I brushed it off.
Yeah.
I didn't think very much of it. I was in no pain. I didn't feel any symptoms whatsoever. And then about a year later, um, I did start to get some numbness in my feet, in my hands, my extremities, and my wife noticed that my eyes had gone yellow and my skin had
Wow.
started to go yellow, and so that had progressed into cirrhosis, and I was in denial again, and but finally I went to the doctors. We had all sorts of blood tests done, and I developed hepatic encephalopathy, which is ammonia on the brain and brain fog, and things
Wow.
just weren't clicking and weren't right, and I knew that something was wrong and had to be fixed. And again,
Yeah.
like I said, there was no pain, so I wasn't. It didn't
Yeah, you
affect
didn't think
me.
anything of it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, of course. And now, before all of this happened, what did you understand about the liver and the role that it plays in your overall health, and how has your perspective changed now?
Yeah. Again, in denial. I didn't think anything of it. But as my numbers started to decrease in everything, kidney function, liver function, everything was going down in a spiral. And what I learned, the best way I can describe it to people without getting into incredible medical terms, is that your body, you're the president and CEO of your body, and there's lots of moving parts and there's lots of different departments. And one of the departments is your liver, and that is the mailroom of your giant corporation. And it receives everything in that you take, that you ingest, and it filters out. It gets rid of the spam, you know how, one way or the other.
Yeah.
And the good stuff gets sent out to all the other organs. Well, when the mailroom slows down and eventually shuts down, none of the other organs get the memo. They don't get the message. They don't get the directions. They don't know what to do. So they stop. And then everything stops.
Wow.
And it becomes more than just liver disease because it affects all of the other organs. And I wish I'd known that when I was diagnosed with fatty liver. I would have done something about it.
Yeah, of course. So, Patrick, can you tell me a little bit about, so when you were first diagnosed with the fatty liver, right? What I mean, I know that you kind of just, you brushed it off. You had heard it for several times. What would you want others to know who may recently have received the same diagnosis and are kind of like, well, fatty liver diseases, and maybe I shouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah, it needs to be addressed. It needs to be taken seriously. You need to be 100% fully committed in your diet and your exercise, and you need to be mentally strong. And you can't take it for granted. You can't hope that it's going to fix itself. You need to attack it and fight and and get the help that you need. And like it's I know independent people say, "Oh, I can handle this, I can do this," but you need help, you need support, you need medical attention, and you definitely need family and
Yeah.
support and friends, no question about it.
Yeah, 100%. So what did that support look like for you when you were first diagnosed, and your wife noticed that the white in your eyes, it was getting yellow, and all of this began to happen.
Yeah, with when there, like I said, there was no pain, but there was physical differences, and there were cognitive differences. My wife noticed there was just something wrong. There was something wrong with me. It was off. There was something off, and I went to the hospital, and I ended up in there for 3 months.
Yeah.
It went from nothing to something in a hurry, and um, it was scary. And I was still in denial. I still didn't think, I said this is going to pass. This is nothing big, and it turned out to be quite big. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. So, I mean, you spent three months in the hospital. That's a really long time. So, as your condition kind of progressed, what was that experience like for you physically and emotionally?
Yeah, physically, I was in a bed. I was transferred to three different hospitals, ultimately ending up in one in Boston. Um, and emotionally, I realized the trouble that I was in, um, and and emotionally, my family was there for me and visiting me, and things got worse and worse, and I you just you have to fight it. My daughter, she made a video of all of my friends telling me to stay positive, keep fighting. We'll see you when you get out, and so that was really a lot of help to me because you spend a lot of alone time in a hospital, and
Right.
trying to get out. I just it's two of my favorite athletes that I admire and respect are Tom Brady and Larry Bird, and I'll probably get a lot of thumbs down from around the country here.
Any thumbs up, any thumbs down?
But it was we adopted this WWBD, which is what would Brady do or what would Bird do, and I was so set on quitting and saying I've had enough of this. I just want to go home. And they were like, you got to fight. What would Brady do? What would Bird do? And I stayed, and ultimately, things worked out okay for me. But it was a difficult journey, and there's no question you cannot do it alone. Bird had teammates. Brady can't do it himself. You just got to be confident and 100% committed um, into the program and working it and trying to stay alive and try to win in the end.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I mean, you're here with us today, and I'm so thankful. And after your transplant, what did recovery look like for you?
It was difficult. Like I said, I had no pain until surgery, and then that was quite painful. I have about a 9-inch scar from my sternum to the side here to remind me every day of how lucky I am, um, and how much I've worked. I went from if you spend 3 months in a bed in a hospital with no physical rehab, you lose control of your legs. I couldn't walk. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't stand up. I didn't think I was ever going to walk again. And I was wondering, is this worth it? But after the transplant, post transplant, I went to physical therapy, and I knew that I was going to work as hard as I could to get out of there because I didn't like being there. So
Yeah.
when they asked me for 10 steps, I gave them 15. When they asked for 20, I gave them 25. I knew that I was going to be the hardest worker in that facility to get out as fast as I possibly could.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah, and you did it. We have you
And I
here with
did.
us today.
Yes.
Yeah. So this webinar is all about mind, body, and support. As you look back now, you're about 7 months after your transplant. What role did mental health providers and dietitians play in helping you heal? And why do you think that those resources are important?
Very, very important. There's no question about it. I saw so many different wonderful professionals while I spent my time in the hospital and in rehab. Physical and occupational therapists that I worked with, my caseworker, the nurses were fantastic, the doctors, the surgeon, my hepatologist, my nephrologist. My kidneys were going
Wow.
down because my liver was gone, but
Yeah.
then everything, the dietitian, proteins, less fat, cut out the booze. By the way,
Yeah.
I will share this. Yesterday was my 1 year clean and
Yeah,
sober
of course.
anniversary. So, but cutting out all of that,
Yay.
and yeah, for those that can meditate,
We're very proud of you.
moderation is fine, but not for me. It's zero. Um, but the support, the psychologists, you have to go through a lot of different people to get approved to get a transplant, and then you need a lot of people to recover after a transplant, and it
That's
cannot,
right.
trust me, it cannot be done by yourself. I went from a bed to a wheelchair to a four-legged walker to a cane to now I can get around on my own. But it took a long time. It took a lot of people. It took a lot of work, and it took 100% commitment. You can't
Yeah.
you can't blow it off. You can't half what it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, and I'm sure a lot of people today, I see it in the comments, are very inspired by your journey. And as we wrap up today, I wanted to know what's one message you hope that everyone watching today remembers from your story?
Yeah, you need to pay attention. You need to listen to your primary care. Um, and you need support for sure, but even if you don't have pain, the numbers in the blood tests will tell you if something's wrong, and you need to address it sooner rather than later. I waited. I was in denial. I waited. I probably could have avoided this whole thing had I 2 years ago with fatty liver disease educated myself, educated my family, and we could have possibly avoided this. I in denial did this to myself. So it's avoidable. Um, some are, some aren't. I get that. This one, in my case, probably was had I listened. So it's very important to get that team around you and work together to get
Yeah,
the win.
yeah, it is. So thank you so much, Patrick, for sharing your experience. We're gonna have you come right back
Sure.
after
If you
we
have
have our next
any,
panelist. Thanks,
sure.
Patrick. So we're gonna have our next panelist come onto the stage. Thank you so much. Taylor Janulewicz is a registered dietitian specializing in oncology nutrition and eating disorder care. She earned her Bachelor of Science from Nicholas State University and completed her dietetic internship through Utah State University before returning to Arizona. Inspired by her work in bone marrow transplant and critical care, Taylor is passionate about helping individuals navigate cancer treatment and treatment-related side effects as well as complex relationships with food. She combines evidence-based nutrition guidance with compassionate, personalized care to help clients maintain strength and support through recovery and build confidence throughout their health journey. Taylor is committed to lifelong learning and delivering patient-centered, empathetic care. Taylor, thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. So, Taylor, I ask everybody this question at the very beginning before we jump into nutrition. We'd love to get to know you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to become an oncology dietitian?
Yeah, my path was very different from maybe most dietitians. I actually was going to school to be a nurse. I grew up with a dad that sold medical textbooks to doctors, and my whole three-car garage had every medical textbook under the sun to look at, and I would steal them and hide them in my room. So we knew we were going to end up somewhere in healthcare, just wasn't sure where.
Somewhere
And
in
then
there.
Yeah. And then somehow ended up realizing nursing wasn't my path. Took my first nutrition class in college and fell in love with it. Graduated, had my first job out in the hospital setting, and actually was asked to cover bone marrow transplant, which maybe some are not aware what that is. It's for blood cancers and some other cancers now we're doing bone marrow transplants for. And then it was really cool to see working in that line of care, the treatments that are out there now for this type of cancers. Because my grandfather actually passed away from amyloidosis and multiple myeloma, which are a bone and blood cancer. So it just happened to fall into it and fell in love with it. Now I've worked with all different cancer types, even including liver cancer. And I have also started my own private practice in oncology nutrition because it might be shocking for some people to hear there is only one oncology dietitian to every 2,300 cancer patients. There's not
Wow.
enough of me employed at hospitals, clinics to help patients going through this and caregivers. So trying to expand the access of care through private practice.
I did not know that. That is very important to know.
Yeah.
So when someone's first diagnosed for example, liver cancer, what are some of your biggest nutrition challenges that you commonly see?
Yeah, so there's many of them that can come through my door, but the biggest one I see with liver cancer, and maybe some patients have it, not all patients do, is called ascites, which is a fluid buildup in the abdomen area when the liver is not working as well, which can then put a lot of pressure on the stomach, so it makes it harder to eat. And then you add your treatment on top of that, which turns off your hunger cues. That's the biggest issue I see when it comes to nutrition going through these treatments.
Yeah, I mean, of course. And patients, I know sometimes throughout their treatment journeys, and I've heard it before in a past live event we had, they're told to just eat healthy, right? And I feel like that can easy you can easily say that, but I mean, it can be very hard to do, especially during cancer treatment. What does realistic nutrition actually look like?
Yeah, so that word just eat healthy is probably the most unhelpful thing to say to somebody going through treatment. I hear it all the time in my office with clients and patients. They say that, what does that mean, Taylor? I don't know what that means. Also, to eat healthy could mean I'm cutting everything out. Now I have nothing to eat. My biggest recommendation is like, let's work with where your symptoms are and what is tasting good. Some patients have really difficulties with taste changes, so we need to work on that. And the other thing is, I want to make sure that they're not being so restrictive with their intake because they quote unquote healthy is what they're seeing. So, working on letting go of that control a little bit and meeting where they're at.
Of course. And I mean, I'm not sure if you get this a lot, but are patients typically scared to go see a dietitian?
Some are and some aren't. Some are like, I have been asking to see you every time I see my oncologist. I'm so excited I finally get to see you. Then I have others that are like, I'm not sure why I'm here and I'm worried you're going to take my coffee away. And I'm like, I don't know why everybody says that. Is everybody talking about that in the waiting room? Where's the coffee coming from? So, yes, some patients are really excited and some are very hesitant or they've had bad experiences with dietitians in the past either due to weight management, diabetes care, kidney care. Maybe they just didn't meet the right dietitian for them. Just like the previous panelists talked about, you have to find the right person on your journey.
Yeah.
Not every dietitian is going to be the right one for you.
Yeah. You got to shop for dietitians as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know with treatment, you mentioned a little bit that, appetite can change and taste as well. What are some practical ways that patients can work through those changes?
Yeah, so meeting with a dietitian is huge, but sometimes, as we discussed earlier, not always have access to one. So, some tips that you can take home today is leaning into the taste that tastes good to you. So, trying to take away that restrictions around sugary foods or overly salty, allow you to add those flavors back into your diet because maybe those are the only things that taste well, and then we can make sure you're getting enough nutrition that way. Another one I love recommending, and I have great success with it, is going and buying a small little snack size plate, small cup, small bowl. That is your snack plate. That's where your loved ones can put little different pieces of food on there, just 1 to 2 bites, and you can taste the different flavors and see which one's sitting for you, and then get more of that flavor without feeling like you didn't eat enough or you are throwing away the whole plate because you don't like that taste. I had a patient recently tell me she was so excited to come back and say, "Oh my gosh, I got the cutest plate. It has a hummingbird on it, and I love it every time not my patient, my loved ones bring it to me because then I know it's my snack plate and I know I can do this."
Of course. Yeah, I mean it's important to make your food look cutesy. I think it makes you want to eat it more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a lot of caregivers watching today. What would you like them to know when they're trying hard to, for example, nourish someone that they love?
Yeah, I always check in with my caregivers when they walk in. And I was like, "How are you doing? Are you also taking care of yourself? Are you eating?" Sometimes I just want to give snacks to everybody that walk through my office. But my biggest thing is I want to say to them is that you're doing everything right. You're not doing anything wrong with their nutrition. You are not setting them up for failure. The fact that you're offering them meals and just cooking and giving them love through that way is the hugest thing. It's just the biggest thing we can show love with, just remembering that it's okay that they don't want it at that time, and all you can do is offer it.
Yeah, yeah. 100%. I think like Anna mentioned before, it's important to also let your caregivers, help you because it makes them also feel better. Um,
Mhm.
and so we have and this is I think one of our biggest questions is there's a lot of nutrition advice online, right? And it can
Mhm.
be really overwhelming. What is one of the biggest myths that you'd like to clear up?
Oh, I'm sure everybody has asked this question. I hear it all day, every day is, does sugar feed my cancer? And do I have to cut out my favorite piece of cake with my loved ones? And I tell them, sugar does not feed your cancer to make it grow bigger or metastasize further. Cancer is so a beast, is the best way I can describe it. It's going to get its nutrients from anywhere. You can't starve cancer from sugar. Our body produces sugar, also known as glucose. So you trying to starve your body of sugar is actually going to starve your whole body, which can cause malnutrition, which a lot of patients aren't aware of. When we get malnourished, it can lead to worsening treatment side effects to the point of where the treatment has to be stopped because you're so malnourished. So I always like to say moderation, allow yourself to have the sweet treat and still eat your protein. And if you can eat your fruits and veggies, great. But we'll meet you there where you're at as dietitians to help you with all of this.
Yeah, yeah. That's great advice. And we've talked a lot about, nutrition during treatment. What does nutrition look like after treatment? And what are some of the challenges that survivors face?
Yeah, so nutrition can get even more confusing for survivors. Through treatment is what I hear from my clients and patients that they've been on a marathon. Like they're just trying to get to the end line. They're not trying to be super restrictive as best they can. But once they get into survivorship and they're told, "Yay, you rang the bell. We'll see you 3 to 6 months, follow up." And then they feel like everything's kind of falling apart because that support system was around them for so long. And then now they're like, "Oh, I don't know what to do with my nutrition. The internet's telling me this thing or this supplement. I need to restrict all what I eat. I need to eat more healthy than I ever have before." And what I see that with clients or patients is that it can start leading into disordered eating, where we're cutting out whole food groups. We are starting to do some weird stuff with our food that can lead down to the road of an eating disorder, so we don't want to do that. So working with someone like a dietitian that can come in and help you rebuild your trust around food. Still, there are side effects that can linger for years after treatment. Okay, how do we make sure nutrition is supporting you and also not causing, gas, bloating, just altering what you're eating to help manage side effects that could last for long periods of time. And then also building a relationship with your body. I mean, I know a lot of my patients and clients talk about how surgery has changed how they look. Their chemo changes their skin, hair, and nails.
Yeah.
They don't feel the same, or they're in menopause now, so they're gaining weight from that. So we talk about how to rebuild your trust with food and body into survivorship.
Yeah, and I think that's really important for people to know that, those changes are normal and that there are people here that can work with them to improve that and to help them throughout their journey. And so I think that's why I love this panel that so much, that it's, we're focusing on the whole person, and sharing all that important um, expertise and advice. And so, as we wrap up today, I wanted to know, what is one nutrition message you hope every patient and caregiver remembers from this conversation?
Yeah, it may sound like what everybody else said, ask for help earlier. I always say everybody is a tool in your cancer fighting toolbox and into survivorship. So a dietitian is one of those tools in that toolbox for you, along with your oncologist, your pharmacist, your social workers, therapists, caregivers. Everyone's here to help you. The sooner you can get in with a dietitian, the better off you may feel, because we can help manage those side effects, help keep you strong through treatment. And if you didn't have a dietitian during that time, finding one now into survivorship that can help you manage treatment related side effects, body changes, and how to support you going forward with the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing advice. I would definitely say lean into that support that you have, guys. Thank you so much, Taylor. So we're going to ask all of our panelists to join us back on stage. And in the meantime, while they do that, I'm going to be launching today's poll. Oh, sorry, today's quiz. My apologies. So hopefully you guys can see this. I don't think our panelists can answer, but I definitely think you guys can see it, and I'll read it out loud. Um, According to today's panel, which statement best reflects the overall message of the webinar? One, patients should manage treatment changes on their own whenever possible. Two, cancer care is strongest when patients, caregivers prioritize their mental, physical, and emotional well-being while seeking support from their healthcare team and loved ones. Three, nutrition is the only factor that affects recovery during cancer treatment. Or four, support services are only needed after treatments have ended. So we'll wait for our attendees to go ahead and answer that. Awesome. I see a few of you have answered. Give me thumbs up if you've answered the quiz already. And let's make sure all of our panelists are back. I see we are missing Patrick. And in the meantime, I'll have our attendees go ahead and answer the quiz. Give us a thumbs up once you're done. Awesome. I see a couple thumbs up. Great. And also, if you have any questions, make sure you're putting them in the Q&A. We are just about to start that Q&A portion. Awesome. Great. So I'm going to end the quiz so we can see what the right answer is. Let me share the results. Right answer. So, well, I actually have one of our panelists tell us the right answer. Anybody would like to go?
It's the second one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Mm.
right. Made it easy for you guys. So, cancer care is strongest when patients and caregivers prioritize their mental, physical, and emotional well-being while seeking support from their healthcare team and their loved ones. Awesome. Great. Thank you so much, guys. So, we have our panelists back with us. Just bear with me for a moment. Um, Awesome. Okay, so now that we have all of you here with us, and our attendees were able to hear so much of your advice and your expertise, I'd like to start us off with our first questions. So we have one from ART Ayala. August will be 2 years when I received interventional radiology, and so far the lesion is turning into a scar tissue. However, every 6 months I have my MRI, and recently, 2 weeks ago, my issue is that the anxiety that grows when the checkup is coming up and I'm waiting for the results. Any advice to help me control my anxiety? And any of our panelists can answer.
I can answer, but I wanted to give Ambreen, I think, a chance
Yeah,
to
yeah.
answer first if she wants
Okay.
to.
Ambreen, you've been tagged.
Yeah, first, I just want to name how real that feeling is, that scan anxiety or appointment anxiety before you have a follow-up or a new scan come is very real. That's something as a long-term survivor, I still experience it even now. But it is something that we can learn to manage. I think the first step is acknowledging that it's there, that recognizing what's causing that anxiety is that fear or that possibility of, the other shoe dropping now and learning news that you probably don't want to hear. And then from there, finding things that can help ground you so that you're not just sitting in that anxiety, I think is really important. So if you have a scan coming up, do something that is going to occupy you in a way that's meaningful. For me, I have a lot of animals. I work with horses. So that is my way to just take my mind off of everything. So I'm with the animals. My entire focus is on them and not that anxiety of the scan that I have, or but especially after the scan, when you're waiting for those results, sometimes anxiety is even worse because now you've done it and you're just thinking about that. So doing something that can help occupy you, something that's important and meaningful to you, maybe spending time with friends, and then leaning on your support as well. Talk to people about how you're feeling, let it out there. That anxiety, it's going to be there. It's going to happen. This is very real. We've already had the worst thing happen. We know that cancer is a possibility now. So that anxiety is going to exist, but finding those opportunities to not allow yourself to sit in it, I think, can really help.
Anything else to add, Anna?
I'd like to add, I think that was a perfect answer. Going back to managing expectations, like she said, the anxiety is going to be there. Coping with difficult feelings doesn't mean that they're going to go away completely. It just means managing them. So, a coping skill is routines. Routines can be extremely helpful during this whole process. And whenever you have those scans coming up, you feel that anxiety, sticking with your routine, going about your daily schedule, focusing on the things that you can control can be helpful. The anxiety is still going to be there.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So, um, Anna, I think this question is for you. Uh, 1 second, got a couple questions. Okay. Uh, what does your day-to-day look like when you're advocating for your patients? What type of resources do you offer to your patients?
Advocating can mean a lot of different things in a lot of different scenarios, and it can look a lot of different ways in my day-to-day practice. Different resources are transient. They come and go depending on what kind of grants are out there. They can be real fickle in terms of like who qualifies and the nuances behind the qualifications and when exactly there's one particular resource that patients ask for, and I have to like press the send button at the exact right time once a month and then maybe hope that we win the lottery kind of thing. But a lot of it is justifying the need for the resource. And that takes, research, it takes time, it takes chart reviews. But it's not exactly hard to do because I know that patients deserve them. It's just articulating the justification for it. And sometimes it looks like in the medical review board where we all get together and decide whether someone is an appropriate candidate for transplant or not. Sometimes it happens there too. Sometimes it looks like let's give them a little bit more time to put this in place before we put this other set of pressures on them. And communicating with all the doctors, the nurses, the surgeons, and everybody else can be challenging.
Yeah, of course. And we have this question for Taylor. So Taylor, a lot of patients, understandably hope that a controlled diet can actually help cure their cancer. Do you think that that's possible? Also, how can a patient distinguish between sound dietary advice and high scam approaches? I don't know what that means, but I think we're
Oh,
about to
I
find
do.
out. Thank you, Mark, for the question.
Great questions. So you can't cure your cancer from diet. If that was true, we wouldn't have the therapies that we have. You can help manage and keep yourself strong to help keep yourself on your treatments to get to your cure and into survivorship. That being said, when it comes to sound advice, I hear it all the time in my office of the craziest things. Some of them I'm not even up to date on because patients like, did you hear the sardine diet. And I was like, what is that? Like, there's just always all this big misinformation out there. So my biggest recommendation is look at their credentials. So if they say they're a nutritionist, that doesn't mean they are a dietitian. A lot of people are kind of shocked by that one. And nutritionists can be anybody that read a self-help book or self-claim themselves as a nutritionist. All of us can call ourselves a nutritionist. It's not a protected title. A registered dietitian nutritionist that is 4 years of undergrad, 2 years of master's degree now, unless you're grandfathered in like I am, and internship and board exams that you have to pass and CEUs as you go along. So looking for the registered dietitian, look for the credentials. My biggest recommendation when it comes to nutrition is be careful. I know there's a lot of self-help out there from previous survivors saying this is what I did to cure my cancer, or this is what I did. Just be mindful that everybody's cancer is different, everybody's journey is different. So, acknowledging that and reaching out to a dietitian to help you figure out what your path is and how to help you feel the strongest.
Thanks, Taylor. And now we have a question for Patrick. Patrick, are you still scanned after transplant for surveillance of HCC?
Yes, I do a blood test, multiple blood tests every 2 weeks. I see my uh, hepatologist once a month now. Used to be every week. It's now down to once a month, but I get scanned for everything every 3 months now.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Nicole, for the question, and thank you, Patrick. Okay, let's see. We have a couple. Oh, we have another one for Taylor. Taylor, my husband is having ascites in the stomach, and he needs uh perian. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to say this, but
Paracentesis. I've had
yes,
plenty of
there
those.
we go. That's why we have you guys to help me out with this. Almost every week right now. He has cholangiocarcinoma. Any recommendations for his diet?
Yeah, so the ascites is caused by the cancer itself, but there's some things we can do from a nutrition standpoint to help them eat a little bit more. So trying to aim for every 2 to 3 hours, something small on that fun plate or bowl that we talked about earlier. Choosing calorie dense food. So adding olive oils, avocado oils to soup, stews, onto your rice, onto your pasta to get extra calories in when you can only eat a couple bites. My biggest recommendation, and that my patients tell me every time they walk in my office, they're like, I feel like I hear your voice on my shoulder every time I go eat something. I was like, oh, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. They're like, no, it's a really good thing. I'm like, okay. They're like, I always say 2 bites is better than no bites. So when they're really having a hard time, they're like, okay, if I can get 2 bites in, that's better than not having anything to eat. So
Yeah,
that's what I would suggest.
100%.
If I can,
Yeah, of
can I
course,
add to
Patrick.
that?
Yeah, of
Just
course.
I had ascites a lot. I had multiple liters drained from my abdomen several times, and I was put on a fluid restriction of 1.5 liters a day, whether it's water or juice or soda or whatever you drink. There was a limit that I could take because my ascites was so bad. I don't know how bad this gentleman's is, but I had to count the amount of fluids that I put in my body,
Yeah. Wow.
And
and
it's
that
always
kept
good
me
to,
down.
Yeah, thank
yeah,
you for
so fluid
sharing that,
is
Patrick.
Yeah, fluid is always dependent on each patient. So just double check with your oncology team or your liver
Right,
team on your restrictions because we don't want anyone to get dehydrated as well.
Yeah,
right, right.
100%.
No.
We have another question for you, Taylor. Taylor, will you recommend some foods to stay away from and suggestions on foods to get help and have a healthier liver?
Yeah, so if you're going through cancer treatment or you're on anti-rejection medications for a liver transplant, like Patrick went through, is grapefruit, pomegranate, and Seville oranges for your anti-rejection medications. And when I say Seville oranges, it's not your orange that you get in the store. It's the oranges found in orange marmalade. So don't panic. Your oranges are fine to eat. Your cuties, great. Those three fruit, even though they're tasty, actually interacts with your anti-rejection medications from your liver transplant. from your chemo for your liver cancer, grapefruit interacts with, I swear, every medication under the sun. Some people may already avoid it due to heart medications. So always double checking with the pharmacist to make sure like your meds aren't interacting with those foods. And then to help with your liver, if let's say we have a fatty liver disease, we want to kind of reduce our refined sugars, not, I take the approach as moderation is better than completely eliminating it, because then we tend to binge on it when we get a hold of it, meaning we eat way more than we would have if we just enjoyed the cake and move on with the day. Make sure you have fruits, vegetables, whole grain, lean proteins. Our healthy fats would be nuts, seeds, nut butters, avocados, olive oil, avocado oils, stuff like that.
Yeah, that is a great advice. Let me go ahead and click done. So, we have another question. How do you help a patient meet their daily protein intake
Yeah, I
or
have some
goal?
tips up my sleeve. One of my favorite ones to recommend, especially when hydration is difficult due to taste changes, protein's hard to get in because it feels heavy on the stomach. May sound very familiar to a lot of cancer patients or the loved ones hearing that, is using bone broth. So cooking your rice in bone broth, cooking your meats in bone broth adds a little bit more protein into your diet. Also, making it maybe more of a ritual, like we like our cup of coffee or our tea in the morning, switching to a warm cup of bone broth where you can adjust the flavor profile to it to overly salty or not, a little more spicy or not, and then just sip on it throughout the day. That can help you get more fluids and protein in your diet without feeling that heavy feeling of, let's say, chicken.
Yeah,
Tofu and
yeah.
beans can be also helpful.
I was just about to ask you. I was gonna ask you, does that also help with your daily liquid intake?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, I try to kill two birds with one stone. So.
perfect. Yeah, perfect. We have one more question here. For someone that's maybe dealing with cancer and maybe wanting to binge eat a bit, what would be your advice? What should they be eating?
Binge eat. Okay, so I always like to look at, okay, do we feel the urge to binge eat? Let's look back at the rest of the day. Did we eat anything throughout the day? Typically, what I see with binge eating is we restrict it all day long, and then once we get a hold of something, we can't stop. And that's the natural form of your caveman brain, is just trying to nourish you, trying to get food in you because it thinks it's in a starvation mode when accidentally you might have did it to yourself by fearful of eating or stress. So my biggest recommendation is to make sure you're nourishing yourself throughout the day. If that means, the 2 bites is better than no bites, it's going to help. And if you binge on some cookies because you're just having a hard day, have some and move on. Don't beat yourself up over it because there is a lot going on. And also, maybe reaching out to your dietitian or your social worker and therapist, they can also give you coping tools when those feelings are coming up versus leaning into overeating food as the coping mechanism.
Right. Thanks so much, Taylor. And
Mhm.
again, to our attendees, we can't give medical advice because our professionals here are not your provider. So we encourage you all to go to your provider, ask for advice. These are good things to take note of, to ask your provider and have them help you with your specific need. Um, awesome. I do not think we have any more questions, but we might have time for one for one more. And actually, well, maybe Patrick can answer this while I launched the poll. Patrick, do you still kind of, I know we've talked a lot about anxiety. Do you feel that anxiety when you go in for your regular scans?
I do, to some degree. Like we had mentioned before, that you try real hard to worry about things that you can control and not worry about those that you can't. Um, so there is a bit of anxiety, certainly, more so after it's done and waiting for the next step.
Mhm.
Um, a scan is a scan. It's going to be there. It doesn't, you can't 2 days before start doing good things and hope that it's going to change something. So
Yeah.
it's there. And to manage it, like it's been said before, you try to put your mind somewhere else and just let it be, and then work with your team
Yeah. Yeah.
after the results come back and move forward. Then
Yeah.
I would say, just live your
Thanks.
life until you get the scan. You get the scan, and then you wait for the results, and then you act.
Thanks, Patrick. Thank you for sharing that. We have our last question. Somebody asked, Marcia asked, many days I feel very hungry and wanting to eat everything. I have stage 4 colon and bone cancer. What should I eat?
Hmm.
I think that one's
Oh,
for you, Taylor.
oh, say it again. Sorry.
Sorry. Many days I feel very hungry, wanting to eat everything. I have stage 4 colon and bone cancer. What should I eat?
Yeah, so I hear this often. It might be related to your steroids if you're on them. This little drug is just makes appetite through the roof for a lot of people. They tell me they want to eat the kitchen sink, and then they're up all night because it makes them very jittery. So just making sure you're eating, if you're hungry, I want you eating because most likely those few days you're on your steroids are probably going to be your best days of nutrition. And then once those steroids come off, that's when all the side effects probably start hitting, is what I typically see. So don't beat yourself up over that you're eating everything, focusing on protein, making sure you can get your calories in too. If you can eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and it doesn't give you any gas, bloating, uncomfortableness, especially with a colon cancer, trying to get those in and then be kind with yourself once those steroids wean off, because most likely you're not feeling the best.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing. So before we say goodbye and I thank our sponsors, I would like to go ahead and launch this quick poll just to get a feel where everyone's at today. So after today's webinar, what's one step you feel encouraged to take next? One, talk with my healthcare team about nutrition, mental health, and supportive care resources. Two, reach out for additional support such as a dietitian, social worker, therapist, or support group. Three, make positive changes to support my physical and emotional well-being. Have an open conversation with my family or caregiver about my needs, or all of the above. So this is just a quick poll to see where everyone's at. I'll give you all a minute to answer. And thank you so much for asking so many questions and for your reactions. We love to see those reactions, and it's great to see that everyone feels thankful for everything our panelists have shared today. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you everyone for answering the poll. I'll give it 10 more seconds. Great. Awesome. So, last and foremost, I'd like to also thank our sponsors, Eisai and Merck, for making this webinar series, The Truth About Liver Cancer, for helping us make this a possibility. And again, thank you to our attendees for joining us today, as well as our panelists. Thank you for sharing your expertise and advice and all your personal journeys with liver cancer and or liver disease. And if you guys are attendees who are here with us today would like to join our liver cancer community, it is a HIPAA compliant community where you can get support. We actually have one of our um, what is it called? Moderators of our community here with us today as an attendee listening in. Hello, Nicole. Please feel free to join our community. It's a great help, and there's always someone there to support you and talk to. And I know Andrew is putting that link in the chat as well. And then also feel free to support our mission here at Blue Fairy. She's also putting that link in the chat, so you can donate at bluefairy.org/donate. So thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you all for joining today. We are so thankful for you, and I hope you have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thank you so much for having
Thank
us.
you.
You.
Thank you all.